Hello and welcome to episode 110 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. I'm the father of the most beautiful beast in the world, Jerry, and we are coming off of a football won't be around in 100 years week. Yes, that's right. I'm pretty confident that sometime, relatively soon, the health toll that football takes on these dudes' bodies will outweigh the entertainment the game provides us and the money that it makes. Maybe not in our lifetime, maybe not in our kids' lifetime, but sometime, relatively soon. And I think everyone is freaking out about all the week 2 injuries, at least in part because there were so many to skill players. Because fantasy football is why the NFL is so popular. So when Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley and Devontae Adams and Paris Campbell and Jimmy Garoppolo and Cam Akers and Cortland Sutton and Sterling Shepard and Raheem Mostert all get hurt on the same day, it's a nightmare. It's time to freak out. But if it were a bunch of blocking tight ends and defensive tackles, no one would be up in arms. Yeah, but alas, this is the game. And let's be very honest. I was able to book a win this week, but it was only because Devontae Adams got hurt, because Paris Campbell got hurt. I mean, Devontae Adams was 45% owned in the big $25 single entry double up on DraftKings. Paris wasn't as owned, but he was owned somewhat too. So yeah, I think my lineup was good. Whatever. I got lucky that those guys got hurt. I was on the good side of it that Devontae and Paris got hurt. So anytime that I'm tempted to bitch or whine about running bad, I try to remember things like this. Like when I want to whine about Dak stealing 3 1-yard touchdowns from Zeke, or about Julio dropping like the easiest 42-yard touchdown he'll ever have, I try to remember this, that I got lucky with the Devontae Adams and Paris Campbell injuries. Now, let's be clear. Regardless of result, the quote-unquote optimal construction in week 2 was very, very clear. The 3 running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, a 6K quarterback, a cheap tight end, and 2 4K wide receivers. I mean, Jesus, freaking DJ Pauly D was on that construction. But just knowing that is the optimal construction is so important, obviously for cash, but also for tournaments, because as I hope everyone knows by now, understanding what our opponents are going to do in NFL DFS tournaments is almost as important as knowing what the actual NFL players are going to do. Anyways, let's start with cash. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't fathom not playing Zeke and JT and Henry in cash, the big dog, projecting so clearly ahead of the field were those 3, all of them in great setups. I also couldn't fathom not playing one of Kyler or Dak or Josh Allen in the 6K range. Kyler obviously standing out given price, matchup, expected pace in that game. And also couldn't fathom not playing Deontay Johnson at 4,500 as he ascends to the wide receiver 1 role for a healthy Big Ben against an AJ Boye-less, Von Miller-less Denver defense in Pittsburgh. So after we got those 5 guys in, after that, there were some decisions, but anyone that didn't have that kind of construction, I'm happy to play against them. In other words, it was what I like to call a prove it week. And we have some of these every year, and like in the bubble of DFS Twitter and in the bubble of people who follow me and Evan and ETR, you hear, oh, you can't play cash. Everyone's going to have the same lineup. The slate is fucked. Don't play cash. There's no edge. Yeah, but that's not the way I see it. I see it. I have the stones. Prove to me that you can also have the stones. And in the big $100 single up on DraftKings, which is certainly not low stakes, but let's talk about the big $100 single up on DraftKings for a second. Jonathan Taylor was only 73% owned at 5,700. 26.8% of the field did not play Jonathan Taylor in the $100 single entry double up. Ezekiel Elliott was only 60.7% owned. Deontay Johnson, 40.7%. CeeDee Lamb, 23.1%. Now, let's talk about low stakes. Let's say the $5 single entry double up. Taylor was only 64%, Zeke 55%, Derrick Henry 72, Deontay Johnson 37, Kyler 57. And if you did a good job posting your head-to-heads of using the block function, other things that I talked about in the game selection article, which is still up for free, well, I bet that gasp, I bet that not everyone has the same lineup. I'll always make them prove it. Now, what is true is that the nosebleed stakes, at small field, high stakes cash, yeah, it's mostly 2v2s and tight 3v3s, but 99.9% of the people listening to this are completely unaffected by that. So again, these prove it weeks are ones we should, I think, look forward to in cash, not try to avoid. And that brings me to GPPs, because when we have a week like this with ownership so clustered on a few guys, I mean, this is a GPP players, full-blown pants-off intercourse kind of week. And if you're looking for a clinic, I mean like a textbook GPP play. Like if you look up GPP play in the dictionary, week 2 Aaron Jones of the 2020 season should come up. Devontae Adams, we had projected ownership around 30%. Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor sucking up all of the running back ownership. Packers had the biggest offensive line, defensive line mismatch of the week in Thorne's rankings. Literally number 1 offensive line against number 32 defensive line. So if Jones gets the TDs for Green Bay, you ice all the Devontae teams. If Jones outscores the 3 chalk running backs, you ice those teams as well. And he had a very, very, very good chance to do so given the setup. Even though we knew Jamal Williams would play, A.J. Dillon would play, Tyler Ervin might play, Aaron Jones still had a really good chance to do so. We've seen his pass game roll. We've seen his touchdown efficiency in the red zone. Way more than 9% owned would suggest that Aaron Jones could ice those guys. So put it on the wall of fame, man. I know Dink and Leone spent most of their Saturday show talking about Aaron Jones. Leone won the Juke, which is the $400 3 max on DraftKings with Aaron Jones. He actually had Jones on all 3 of his teams there. Even me, a sick GPP fish, had Jones in the Juke. Help me cash there. I think if you play tournaments and you didn't think about this spot for Aaron Jones from a theory perspective, it's probably time to look in the mirror. And look, it can go the other way as well, right? Like I thought Nyheim Hines was an interesting pivot off of JT in tournaments. It seems crazy now after Hines got 1 touch all game, but what if Indy got behind big? Or what if Nyheim actually had a real role? JT was 23% owned, Hines was 8%. And that's just the GPP life. You're going to take on these leverage spots, and Aaron Jones was a wall of fame play for GPPs, whether it worked or not. I also want to spend a minute on Derrick Henry. It's easy to point and laugh at Derrick Henry faders when the dude is ripping off 75-yard TD runs and stiff-arming dudes 80 pounds lighter than him in the secondary. But you can see how the way he scores fantasy points yields a much lower floor than the other guys in his price range. When you are a 0 in the pass game, you are subject to both touchdown dependency and game flow dependency. And that's not to say that Derrick Henry was a bad play in week 2. I think he was fine. But we know going in that when he doesn't score a touchdown, he's never going to be a bad fade. Like he could go for 35 carries and 150 yards. And that's 15 points on FanDuel. That's 18 points on DraftKings. Like no regrets about fading him at 8K. So playing Derrick Henry on full PPR DraftKings, like it takes a really unique spot for me to do it. I thought this was a uniquely good spot. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But again, certainly for tournaments, Derrick Henry at 7,900 and 30+% projected ownership should give pause. Tight ends, I know everyone is tilted about Chris Herndon. I'm tilted about Chris Herndon. And look, maybe it's just this simple. Don't play guys who play for Adam Gase, period. And honestly, like I'm only half joking. I mean, Ryan Tannehill, Kenyon Drake, Damian Williams, Devontae Parker, Robbie Anderson, so far this year, they all break out as stars after they rid themselves of Gase. I mean, the dude doesn't have Jamison Crowder, Le'Veon Bell, Brashad Perriman goes down early, and he leaves Herndon in to block at league high rates. And, it's on me, honestly, right? Like I really hate when people bitch about coaches when it comes to fantasy. Our job isn't to figure out what coaches should do. It's to figure out what they will do. There's a huge difference. Like think about that. So bitching about Gase and Patricia or whatever, saying what they should be doing, it's just irrelevant. So that's on me. I just didn't think Gase would have any other choice but to feature Herndon in the pass game. I was just wrong. Just wrong. And on the other end of that spectrum was Jordan Reed. The best coach in the league at talent maximization is Kyle Shanahan, the opposite of Gase. So yeah, we talked about Reed a bunch on the Friday night show. San Francisco's so desperate for pass catchers. Reed knowing the Kyle Shanahan system, allegedly looking great at camp. Excellent matchup. And then we get these quotes from Shanny basically saying that, well, we're not going to let Jordan Reed rip just because George is out. And that quote kind of goes viral on fantasy Twitter. So I think I was always playing Herndon in cash regardless, but I didn't know that these quotes would make Reed's ownership absolutely plummet in tournaments. And it did. I mean, he was only 2,600 and he was only 11% owned or so with George Kittle out. But still, even on 20 snaps, and Reed ended up playing 28. A guy like him can get there at that price. So just a note there on being aware of news and processing it. Okay, I've talked enough. It is time to get to everyone's favorite portion of the program, the listener questions. Producer Luke, hit the theme music. Okay, got a ton of good ones. Really appreciate the questions. As always, going to do 7 today. From Fart Boy, he says, can you talk about your player prop bet process a little more? If I have a player projected 2 to 3 yards higher than their line, is that worth betting, or do you usually only bet lines that seem way off? So the biggest thing on props is that you want to lean unders whenever possible. The first reason is injury. It's difficult for the books to bake that into a line. And also when game flows go unexpected, the unders typically benefit. For example, Derrick Henry's rushing prop is 118.5 yards, but what if the Titans fall behind 17-0 in the first quarter? Or Devontae Adams, the line is 8.5 catches, and the Packers are winning 28-3 at halftime. Unders are going to profit in those unexpected game flows. But in terms of edges on props, in terms of projections, 2 or 3 yards is not enough. I mean, it's so soft out there on projections if you shop across different books. We should be able to find 20% edges in our projections versus the lines on yardage stuff. And that's, what I'm typically looking for, 20% difference at least. And also I want to be on the underside. And then the stuff that's really the value in props is just being good fantasy players and understanding injury-related fallout. I mean, that's the real value. That's where we can generate the biggest ROIs. For example, finding a line on Mo Alley Cox when Doyle and Trey Burton are out, or finding a line on Rob Gronkowski when we know he's a blocker and he's dust as a pass catcher. Stuff that we know as good fantasy players that, again, the props are just up there for marketing. You're not going to be able to get a lot of money down. You're going to get limited. They're just up there for marketing. They're not trying to create the sharpest lines possible on these props. Question 2 from Jay Morris. He says, optimal home pooping strategy for a germaphobe has to be sitting directly on the bowl, bypassing the seat. No one else does it, therefore making it less germy. Tell me why I'm right. Yeah, I can honestly say that I've never heard of this idea or thought of it. First of all, Jay Morris, how big is your ass that you can actually sit directly on the bowl, not on the seat? I mean, that's wild. Second of all, assuming you live with, sons, the actual bowl is pretty disgusting. People constantly miss the water. They hit the bowl. I mean, I do too. My 5-year-old is hitting the bowl at probably like an 80% clip. So no, I don't like this idea. I think GTO is that hopefully, and I don't have this, but hopefully you have a house where the kids have their own bathroom and then like a double stall master. And what I mean by that is you go into the master bath and it's wide open, but on opposite sides, there's 2 small stalls, toilets only, keep it separate, man and woman. I think that's the dream, really. Question 3 comes from Luciano Fidalgo. He says, what is a realistic expectation for cashing in the single entry double ups? If you're entering relatively sharp lineups, what should you expect / aim for by the end of the year, i.e. going 12-5 in 2020 or whatever? So I updated my stats and I looked through them. My ROI in those games is about 12 or 13%. And that includes some higher stakes stuff though. So I could certainly see it being higher at lower stakes. That works out to roughly 10-7. I think if you go 11-6, that's awesome. 12-5 would be a really spectacular year. I've said this so many times before, but people's conception of what kind of ROI the best people generate in gambling is so out of whack. Like the best sports bettors in the world are winning at 3-5%. DFS players, I think 10-15%. You're absolutely crushing it, and you're game selecting. Poker, at least live, if you're playing like 5-10 no limit and you're making $60 or $70 an hour, like you're really killing. So yeah, I'd encourage everyone to keep expectations in check, stay on the grind. Question 4 from Zach Wenkos. He says, how do you avoid information overload / paralysis by analysis? Yeah, I know a lot of people struggle with this. So I'd say the first thing I do is not even look at the slate, prices, matchups, nothing. I don't even look at the slate until Wednesday or Thursday. From Monday morning until then, I'm just gathering information in the form of usage, injuries, what coaches are saying, but really just mainly usage. So I have a clear head of how I think players will be used in the upcoming week. And I don't even start building lineups typically until Friday night or so. I'll try to finish my cash lineup or at least be in a good place with it by Saturday. And then I don't even build GPP lineups. I've been building like 6, 7, 8 a week I don't even build those until Sunday morning, just coming fresh with all of it. Now, in terms of information overload / paralysis by analysis, yeah, I'm very aware of that. And honestly, I think part of my job and our job at ETR is to literally go through everything, all the information, all the takes, and pare it down to what actually matters. Like, really, we only try to publish stuff that you need and nothing more. Because, yeah, you guys have jobs and kids and families and lives and team smell the roses. And so it's just not practical to read and sift through everything. It's up to us to pull out what's important. So, yeah, I try to find a process that works for you. Step back and think about what actually matters. Because most of football and most of what you'll read is just like straight noise. Like, it's incredibly small sample size stuff that's always changing context because of injuries, because of personnel changes, because of coaching changes. For me, my process is usage, snaps and pace, line play, Silva's matchups, and then using projections to understand the value of a player based on his salary. Like, it's really not too complicated. But you need to develop your own process of exactly what you think is important. And make sure that it's tight. Question 5 from Falling G's. He says, when you shower at the gym, do you wear swim shorts or do you let your fruit basket hang out like a normal human being? Good question. So I haven't been to the gym since March, but when things are popping in there, man, the locker room is such a scene. Like, the generational gap is so wild. Like, all these old dudes whose dick size inversely correlates with their willingness to be naked are just out there flopping around. And the younger guys, maybe 45 and under, they do the artful thing, the gentlemanly thing. And that is, you take off your underwear with the towel wrapped around your waist. You walk with the towel around your waist to the shower. Once in the shower, you take the towel off, you hang it up, and you turn the water on. Like, this isn't rocket science. There doesn't need to be any fruit baskets out there swinging around. Now, if it's a group shower situation, I see what you're saying about some people wearing swim shorts or whatever. And no, I don't do that. If you do that, you're not cleaning the most important part of your body, the one we need. All of our research done at GenderLabs LLC, aka Gender Consultants, is conducted under the assumption of a clean apparatus. This data, it's useless if we introduce filth. Question 6 comes from Jordan Bolger. He says, do you have a GTO DK crown strategy? Do you ever miss a day of collecting your daily reward? Okay, two questions here from Jordan. First of all, for those who don't know what he is referring to, there are 2 reward systems on DraftKings. Like, it's not much, but it's free, and I hope everyone is taking advantage. The first is every day if you go to the rewards tab on desktop, of course, like a man, you go to the rewards tab, go to daily rewards. Literally, all you do is click on that page, and it gives you something. It depends on how much you played in the previous month. So, like, I think you need to play $25K in a month to get diamond. If you do, you get anywhere from like $1 to $5 a day just by clicking. It takes 1 second. I never miss a day. And at lower tiers, you get crowns or whatever. The second rewards thing that DraftKings has is this crowns thing. So every time you play a tournament, you get some crowns, or they give you crowns in other ways sometimes. And you can exchange these crowns for buy-ins whenever you want. I want to be clear that, that both these reward systems aren't great, right? It's not a lot of money. It's not that big a deal, but it's something. So in terms of crown usage strategy, I really don't think that it matters too much. Some people like to save them until they have enough to get a quote unquote free buy-in into something they wouldn't normally play. Others just constantly spend their crowns, always have a balance of 0. There was a time when I thought there was a chance, like even though it was small, like a chance that DraftKings could go out of business or something legally would happen. And at that time, I would just blow rewards or any tickets that I got as soon as I got them. It was just like a negative free roll not to. But now, DraftKings is a public company. It's obviously secure. From a legal landscape, I really don't think that it matters. The only consideration, I guess, is a change in policy or a change in value. Like, we know what happened with PokerStars and Supernova Elite. Like, they just woke up one day and changed the rules. So I guess with that in mind, spending crowns freely is probably slightly plus EV. All right, question 7. Last question we're going to do today comes from The Mish. He says, my buddy has 5 daughters and desperately wants a son. Should I tell him to focus more on TA, thrust angle, TPM, thrust per minute, or RT, release timing? Is there another metric / tactic he should be using as the Babe Ruth of conception? I figured you could help him out. Yeah, well, thank you, The Mish, for the nice words there as the Babe Ruth of conception. There are a lot of jokes and it's all fun and games about the GenderLabs stuff, but people forget how GenderLabs started. we set out to accomplish a simple goal: help our clients achieve the desired sex of their child through data and proper technique. That's it. I have 2 kids, both are boys. Do you think that's a coincidence? Do you think that I just jam some projections into an optimizer and hit run? Of course not. It's a lot of work and skill. It's thousands of hours of research on what matters. ADOP, average depth of penetration, proving out to be the key. But there's lots of other metrics as well that Mish is referring to. This is the core business, the gender optimization. The POE, pumps over expectation, and other stuff is just for fun. A nice vertical of the business as we scale. Honestly, though, I really have done a lot of research on gender optimization, and I'm pretty convinced it's no fluke that I have 2 boys. It all has to do with different characteristics of male sperm versus female sperm. Male sperm don't live as long. They're more fragile. They're lighter. So we need to change our technique to compensate. And that's really the general idea, Mish. If your buddy needs more help, I can do an in-home consult, during the intercourse. It would be my honor. All right. That is going to do it for another edition of the Solo Pod. We will be back with Silva for team by team pods. One free, one behind the paywall later today. So, for Jerry, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.